something or the other related to NLP. Even if you look at the trends in FDP, now you can see a lot of things as in either in AI or in NLP, or maybe a combination of two. So what are the different applications in NLP in various domains like healthcare, e-commerce, social media, human resource management, legal domains, finance, banking. So most of the applications you might already know, but I didn't see a very any consolidated list anywhere when I was searching for this. So I thought maybe I'll create one. So this gives you an overall idea of where NLP is used in today's world. And then we'll discuss some of the challenges in NLP and, if time permits, evolution of NLP over a period of time. And we will go into more technical details in the next session, in the second session. So before I start, is the audience from an NLP background or a general computer science? How many of you are specifically from NLP? Can I please have a hand raise? How many have taken NLP courses at some point of time? Maybe during your learning or teaching? Namita, okay. Okay, so I see there is not much of NLP people in the group. Okay, that is good, because this is going to be very basic introduction. So if you are already familiar with NLP and all, you might feel this as a repetition. But since the audience is fresh, maybe I can go on talking about NLP. Yeah, I hope it doesn't look like an advertisement for NLP. Sometimes when I start talking about this, I get too excited that finally my talks looks like I am going to advertise something of NLP in the market. Okay. So where NLP comes in the larger picture. So whenever we hear of AI, somewhere we hear of natural language processing. So how are they related? What does NLP has to do with AI, or what AI has to do with NLP? So this diagram, some people will draw it in a slightly different way, where this NLP circle, you can see it is slightly overlapping in AI, but not completely in AI. Okay, so that is again difference in opinion. So natural language processing has always been very much part of artificial intelligence, maybe because language is one of the most intelligent invention of humankind. Okay, we can argue whether a language was actually invented or did it just evolve over time. Of course, it evolved over time, but it is a human creation. So, and we say that humans are intelligent, and one of the main justification that we give is we are the only species that can communicate using language. Okay? There might be very simple form of communication in other animals as well, using other modes, but not as complicated and as advanced as human language. So we connect this as language processing has something to do with intelligence. So we have always believed since a very, very, very long time, maybe since the time of Alan Turing, we have this conception that when we are able to teach a machine to process language, if the machine is able to communicate with humans in his own language, like other than our machine language or programming language or any sort of other languages, which we purposefully invented, the other one evolved naturally. So hence the name natural, because it was naturally evolved, I guess. So once we have a machine, or once we've developed a machine that can communicate in natural language we believe that we could have achieved some sort of intelligence in that machine, right? So we consider language as a hallmark of intelligence, and that is why all this buzzword about NLP when we talk of artificial intelligence. And NLP has been around for a very, very long time, maybe since 1940s. Maybe in our college days, we might have come across ELISA, E-L-I-S-A. I remember playing ELISA using a floppy disk It was just on a command prompt, black screen. You type something and it replies. And if you spend enough time with Elsa, finally you feel that you have found a very wonderful friend in her. She replies to everything that you say. She's so understanding, never argues. So NLP has been around, and that was purely based on AI techniques, like based on a stored knowledge, applying some what would say, a predefined set of rules on these, and coming up with some wonderful answers. Okay, it doesn't actually do anything more than that. Then came machine learning. So this brought about a huge change in the way we see NLP today. So machine learning, using machine learning, we were able to make machines learn from the text. So instead of humans hard coding how language has to be processed, instead of using hardcore rules, we were able to teach machines to some extent learn language from the raw data. And then came with more advanced thing, which is machine learning, deep learning, which is very much part of machine learning. Maybe I would rather call it as traditional machine learning and deep machine learning. Both of them are machine learning after all. And this revolutionized the area, like NLP. The coming of deep learning revolutionized this area, and now NLP, we can see it everywhere and anywhere. Now, what is natural language processing? NLP is an umbrella term that we use to describe anything related to computation and languages. So, we can define it as designing or building computational models to understand and generate human languages to get some useful tasks done. So there are some terms in this which we need to explain a bit in detail. One is understand and generation. So this refers to two separate parts of NLP: natural language understanding and natural language generation. So in NLP, we either try to understand the language, that is, to analyze the text and come up with some meaningful information from it. When we say an NLU or natural language understanding, some of the scientists, computer researchers, they don't agree with the term for one reason. Does machines truly understand anything? That is a very philosophical question. Okay. So when we say understand, let us be very realistic. Understand means to understand enough to get some useful task done. For example, you are doing some machine translation. You want to translate text in one language to another. Okay. So you don't really need to, or maybe the machine need not really understand the concept or indentation behind the text, as long as it is able to reproduce it correctly in the other language. So that is what we mean by to understand, to get some useful task done. So identifying the meaning as the understanding part, and then generating the text in the other target language is the generation part. So these are two separate divisions in NLP. So we call it as natural language understanding and natural language generation. And I said it's natural language because we are talking about human languages, not any other form of language like C programming, Python, or C++. When you say natural language processing, you mean only human languages. Now, so NLP has become too much part of our daily life. That is, we cannot think of a single day where we spend without using an NLP application. Right from the moment you start your day, start with searching something in the Google trying to auto-complete your search. After a few hours, you find that your inbox is filled with personalized advertisement based on your search. the movie suggestions that you get in YouTube or Netflix or anything, all of this is based on some NLP techniques that is being applied to your watch history. The chatbots that you use, your personal assistants like Alexa or Google Home or whatever. So that is, we use NLP for many purposes, and this also has evolved over time. So Google search is no longer a keyword based search. It's not that you search for some keyword and Google tries to find all the documents that contains that keyword and brings it up. No, Google search heavily uses natural language processing to understand the semantic behind your query and comes up with the most useful or most relevant content. Google autocomplete, again, it is based on the people's history, how they search, how often they search for different things. So again, that is an application of language generation. Personalized ad and all, I'm not going into that details. Lately, I have noticed that even what we chat on the WhatsApp or talk over the phone is getting converted into personalized ads. So that tells you how advanced the field is. Now, coming to Gmail's Smart Compose, when you start typing a mail, you can immediately find that Google is able to read your mind and complete the sentences for you. Again, natural language generation. When you get a reply in WhatsApp or Hangout, immediately it tells you what you should reply. And spam filter, again, it is a very most widely used application. Everyone have it in their inbox. Spam filters, it is no longer based on just some keywords which is used to identify spams. You will find that if you start ignoring some mails for some specific period of time, Google will automatically learn that you are not interested in this type of contents and directly redirect it into your spam. So if you are regularly ignoring mails from your guide saying, asking for some things, and soon the Gmail will start thinking, fine, okay, this person is not of great interest to you, and immediately put that in the spam. So such irritating things also comes from spam filter. Then as an academicians, we are, most of you might be familiar with this tool, Grammarly, which is a grammar, which is an writing assistant tool, not just to check grammar, but more advanced things like what sort of audience are you addressing? Like, it gives you suggestions. It gives you suggestions based on what type of audience you're targeting, what formality you want. Do you want to write an informal text? Do you want to write a formal text? What is your domain? Are you an academician? Are you a business person? Or is it a general public? And what tone you want to sound like? Do you want to sound confident, happy, joyful, or friendly, urgent? So respectful maybe when you're writing in an academia. All this tone detection, identifying audience, kind of audience, all these are applications of NLP. Just think of this, give some moments to sink in. From the text, how would you identify whether the text is joyful, whether the text is respectful? So these are some of the applications which we use daily, NLP applications which we use in our daily life. Then coming to personal assistance and voice commands. So coming to voice commands, see, NLP, again, we can classify it as maybe language and also speech. So speech recognition is again a different track of NLP. But usually when we talk of NLP, we talk of text because it is just one more pre-processing step. You can convert the text, you can convert the speech into a text using some ASR techniques, automatic speech recognition techniques. And then once it is converted to language, you can then apply all the language processing technique on this. But the trend is changing now. Nowadays, with the coming of deep learning and all, people apply these language models directly on the speech. So you don't have to actually convert it into a text and then process it. There are tools which are, or there are computational models which work directly on the speech itself. Then language translation, again, all of you might be familiar, so no need explanation. You give a text in one language, you get it in another language. So these are some of the NLP applications which we use daily, but more advanced application we will see soon. Now, what does NLP involve? What are the key tasks in NLP? These are some. This is not a very comprehensive list. This is just some things which I took up from the internet. There are lot more of NLP tasks out there. I would encourage all of you to go up and explore more on this. So coming to some basic tasks, some of the terms which you will come across very frequently when you hear NLP. One is topic modeling. So given a document, so document may contain different topics like maybe sports, history, or politics, different topics. Now, how do you identify what are the topics in the text? Okay. That's about topic modeling, where you try to identify the hidden pattern in the text and identify what are the probability of each topic in the text. That is topic modeling. Text, I think most of the topics in this will be discussed in the coming sessions. We have 4 days left. Then we have text categorization. That is, given a text, how do you categorize it? It may be a classic example, spam classification. You get a text, you classify it as a spam or non-spam. Then text clustering. Given a set of documents, how do you identify similar documents? This is text clustering. This is just one example. Okay, maybe text clustering, you can think of when you're searching for a query, you're giving a query, you identify all documents that is relevant to that. Then information extraction, again the search example. Named entity resolution. So given a text, how do you identify what are the named entities in? For example, maybe names of diseases, names of genes, or names of countries, or anything related to some name. So all these have different applications also in various domains. You will see shortly. And relationship extraction. So identifying relationship between two entities. For example, identifying relation between a gene and a protein, or maybe a symptom and a disease, or yeah. So that is relationship extraction. Then sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis is again a very widely used technique. Most common example you will see out there is customer review. So when you shop for a product in Amazon, you give some review, and there are lakhs and lakhs of reviews out there, or maybe crores. Now, how do you identify which are the positive reviews, which are the negative reviews? This is an example of sentiment classification. From the text, how do you understand whether the text is having a positive sentiment or a negative sentiment? And there is slight variation of this, maybe which we saw in Grammarly, identifying the emotions, okay, joyful emotion or sorrowful. All these are examples of, or maybe a bit more enhancement of sentiment analysis. So moving on to different applications in NLP. See, the main issue when we are talking in online models, after some time we start doubting whether we are still audible. So just For confirmation, am I still audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So can someone give me some example of or some example in healthcare or any domain where NLP is applied? Can you think of some applications? Maybe in healthcare. What do you think? Can you think of some applications in healthcare where NLP is used? Or maybe I will continue. Okay. So, if any of you are planning to do some research or going to some projects or in NLP, these are some of the areas which you can look into. So, in healthcare, one of the main application is in electronic health record mining, EHR mining. The electronic health record stands for all records related to health, like doctor's prescription, lab reports, clinical notes generated from different health practitioners. So EHR mining, one main application is in identifying this disease risk prediction. Okay, so so unlike in India, in many foreign countries, people have a separate data store of all their health records. It's not that today I go to one hospital, so get some reports and then I throw it away, and next day I go to some other hospital and then I get a fresh record. Not like that. They keep track of health records of each citizen. So no matter where you go, which practitioner you meet, your entire health history is stored. So it is much easier to do all this processing, unlike in India, which is a much more difficult because we don't have such a repository of health records. And even if it is there, it is limited to individual hospitals. So if you're meeting one hospital, they store your records. They won't give it to other hospital, so there is no way you can connect these two. But in foreign countries this is not the case. Each person have an electronic health record which is accessible to all practitioners, and maybe there might be some security or privacy issues, but other than that, if you remove the privacy part, then you can process these health records to gain many insights about diseases. For example, disease risk prediction. So from the history of a person's medical history of a person, we can identify how much risk he has to get some disease. For example, a person who is continuously showing some lack of sleep or aggressiveness or maybe depression, guilt or something. Okay, so people may be able to, not people, I mean doctors may be able to identify that these are some early indication of that person is going to suffer from some mental illness. Okay, or maybe some other, every disease they might be showing some symptoms at a very early stage. So if you can use or if you can automate this process, and if you can mine through these records, you might be able to identify the risk factors that may result in a disease in the future and give early care to the person. Yes, someone is prone to some disease, you can give medical attention or something, preventive measures before that actually happens. So this is again one area where a lot of research is happening, especially in case of mental health. We can see a lot of papers coming out in these days about how the people try to predict this illness at a very early stage. Then about personalized healthcare, again, suggesting personalized treatment plans by identifying patterns. So similar patterns, a patient with a similar pattern may have already treated for that disease. So how can, using this, how can you come up with a better treatment plans? Then another application is in chatbot therapist. So most of these chatbot therapists, it's already open to the public. I remember chatting with one of the therapists long before. I think it was from Facebook. If you Google it, you will find it out. Okay. So there is one chatbot where you can chat with it, and it is like a psychologist. It will ask you many questions, and it will try to identify whether you need any sort of psychologist help, and it will redirect to you correspondingly. So something like that, interesting but very irritating. uh, so these are some areas where NLP is getting applied in personalized healthcare. Then disease evolution prediction. So some diseases, it has evolved over time. Okay, the symptoms might have changed. Even if you take of COVID, take a situation of COVID, the COVID, over the 2 years, lot of changes have happened in its symptoms. So many people around the globe may be reporting about this with hashtags. So by applying NLP techniques on these texts, maybe blogs, posts, Facebook posts, Twitter tweets, you will be able to identify how diseases evolve, what are the changes in symptoms. So these are some applications. Then drug reaction detection, extracting social, okay, extracting social determinants of health. For example, what are the social factors that affect the health? Like maybe unemployment, people who are more stressed, they might have be more prone to maybe high BP or something, or maybe use of alcohol or drug. So such social determinants also have a huge role in healthcare. So how do you identify what are the social determinants identified, or that are that cause some diseases? Okay, so how do I identify the relationship between some diseases and some social determinants? So this is again another application. Again, next application is in e-commerce and digital marketing. So this is why you see lot of e-commerce sites jumping into this. If you just go to Amazon or any site, you will see a lot of openings, job vacancies for NLP practitioners, computer scientists who has some experience in NLP. There is always opening in all uh, popular e-commerce giants. Let it be Amazon, Flipkart, or whatever. But this is where the industry is interested in, and this is the reason why there is a lot of um, buzz around this word NLP. So they uses mainly they use statistic sentiment analysis, as I said, customer reviews, movie reviews, sentiment analysis, then machine translation, language understanding. So what are the main goals in using NLP in e-commerce? One is understanding user intent. The user may be searching for something. Okay, the user may not be very specific about what his need is, but he may just be searching for some random things. So if the model is able to identify what is the user intent and come up with appropriate product, there is more chance that that customer may buy that product. So understanding the intent behind the user search. Next is semantic for search engine experience. So this is the same thing. Understanding the meaning instead of just the keyword, understanding the meaning. Suppose you don't know what keyword you want to search, but even if you give something in your own words, still the search engines can come up with the product that you want. Then auto correct and auto complete, virtual assistants and chat based product recommendations. So from your previous product reviews, or maybe your chat with the virtual assistants out there, with the help center or whatever, they can make recommendations used to get their products sold definitely. Then target advertising. So advertising a target of uh, identifying the target for advertising and making more specific advertising for those group. For example, even in this all, what is that, big sale day and all, you see that you get many offers, okay, and you find that the offer you get is not the same as offer that your friend got. Okay. So this is again where this NLP comes in, or not NLP, maybe the AI comes in, and it identifies which target group should be given which sort of offers. Then customer review, so how well the product is accepted. So based on that, you can see based on the customer review, the price of the products keeps changing. Then translation for global reach. For example, in Amazon now you can search for products in your own language, right? So it uses machine translation. So NLP is widely used in all these phases of e-commerce. Then next comes NLP in social media. Okay, this is again a very fast growing field. Most of the research you find in this area is in identifying fake news or misinformation and hate speeches. Just a second. So now in social media we see lot of fake information being propagated, like with very purposefully being propagated, okay, for maybe for political reasons, or maybe for some publicity, or maybe to advertise some products. So a lot of fake information get propagated in the social media. So can we use NLP techniques to identify these fake newses? Similarly, people tend to do a lot of verbal abuse in their social media, maybe for one reason that they feel that they are safe in doing so, then no one will find it out. So how do you use NLP techniques to identify fake news and hate speeches in social media posts? So this is again a very fast moving research that you find. Facebooks and Twitter, they all have been investing a lot on these kind of researches. Some of the NLP techniques that we use is stance detection. For example, usually fake news get more responses compared to facts. Okay. Usually fake news generate more controversies compared to actual facts. So by applying stance detection techniques on the responses, we may be able to find out whether a information is fake or true. Okay. So this is just one technique for identifying fake news. Then automatic summarization. By summarizing the news articles, we can compare it with other true or maybe authenticated contents and find out whether the content is authenticate or fake. Then fact checking, sentiment and analysis. Again, sentiment analysis, from the sentiments of the responses, we may be able to identify whether a post is a hate speech or not. Okay, usually hate speeches attract more negative sentiments. So by using sentimental analysis, we can identify whether a post is generating hate or not. So this is one area where social media content uses NLP techniques. Then next is stock market prediction. From by tracking news reports, articles, maybe comments or discussions in the social media posts and twitters, we can identify some hidden patterns which can affect stock market. So there are automatic stock market prediction. There are a whole lot of companies that are working on this particular problem, where they predict the stock market so that they can make better investment or better profit from the stocks. This is how NLP is being used in stock market prediction. Next is human resource management. I hope I'm not boring you too much. Actually, uh, when we talk about NLP research, I get a lot of calls from different students asking like, we are planning to do something in NLP. So can you suggest any research topics? And usually when someone calls me, I'm lost. I don't know what to tell them, because there is whatever domain you take, okay, you find that there is some application in NLP. So when you're taking up a research topic, you can either go for a pure NLP research, okay, that is where you try to understand the language, maybe language understanding. We will see something is coming up in the slides, or you can stick to some domains. Okay, suppose you are a biology person, or you are interested in biology, or maybe you are interested in healthcare, or maybe you are interested in legal domain. So you, whatever domain that you choose, you will find some NLP applications in that. So whenever when you come and ask me whether what research topics can I suggest, first one decision that you have to make is whether you're going to do a pure NLP research, or are you going to apply these NLP techniques and try to bring out some novelty or some contributions in some particular domain. So these are some of the domains that you can look into, and this is the reason why I'm saying all this. But if I go more and more into this, this will become very boring in a few minutes. So coming back, where NLP is being applied in human resource management. NLP has been widely used in talent recruitment. Okay, many companies, many recruitment agencies widely uses NLP. Even our LinkedIn, okay, it is not a recruiting agent. It is to connect potential candidate with the potential job vacancies. LinkedIn heavily uses NLP. So how is it used? So it is for classifying and ranking candidates. So there may be lots and lots of resumes coming up for each job. So how do they identify like which resume goes for which job open? So this is again a classification and ranking problem. Identifying personal traits which are appropriate for a job. It may be from not only from the resumes, even from their social or digital footprints, their social media presence. So identifying personal traits of a person, identifying whether there are any gaps in the record, identifying frauds. Okay, some people may try to fake their resume. So identifying fraud, the deep information extraction, removing human biases. Okay, that is again a very controversial thing. We say that by automating this process, by using natural language techniques, we can remove human biases, because people have a bias, inbuilt bias, that they have some tendency to recruit people that matches their preconception, maybe. Okay, maybe due to gender, maybe due to political, or maybe religious, I don't know, race. There may be different bias or maybe institutions from where they have learned, had their education. All this can result in biases. Okay. The moment you see uh, an IIT resume, definitely we are biased. We maybe seem to overlook some of the other contents in the resume just because we see that title, or maybe when we see a foreign degree, we again have a bias tendency. So humans are subjected to bias, and when we are using NLP or an automated tool based on language processing, we feel that we can remove such bias from the recruitment process, but which is not 100% true. Most of the AI models, including NLP models, have some inbuilt bias in them, which has crept in from the data on which they are trained. So, this last point, removing human bias, I don't know how much that is true, but these are some of the ways where NLP is improving talent recruitment. Then from survey feedback analysis, the company can identify what is the customers, maybe not customers, what is the sentiment of the applicants, or maybe sentiment of their employees towards the company, identifying some friction areas, identifying human emotions, and giving more care to the employees, giving a 360-degree feedback analysis, survey analysis, so something. Then in appraisal, I'm not going to discuss all this in details, but these are some of the areas where NLP has been used in human resource management. Then coming to legal domain. Uh, Legal domain, like legal texts are, as you know, it is very huge. Even if you take up any cases, maybe you have heard, maybe even if you haven't experienced, you might have heard about legal proceedings. They are usually very large document, which is very difficult for humans to analyze and understand, or maybe not maybe very difficult, but maybe very time consuming. So this is where many NLP automation can be brought in. Legal judgment prediction. So based on the previous judgments, can you predict what would be the output of a particular case? And this is the first one, legal judgment prediction. Then similar case matching. Okay, so you have a new case. How do you identify which are the similar cases? So this is where actually in older times, this is where that lawyer's experience comes in, but this automation tool can replace this to some extent. Okay, so given a legal document, using NLP technique, we can automatically identify what are the similar cases. Then legal question answering, legal document summarization, then reviewing legal contracts. Given a legal contract, can NLP techniques be used to identify what are the flaws in that contract, what are the ambiguous parts in the contract? So much applications in legal domains are there. Then in finance comes the credit scoring. So what is for example, when if a person is applying for a loan, okay, how do you calculate his credit worthiness? Is he worthy to get the loan or not? Okay, usually it is individual decision taken by a manager, maybe, or a board of directors, and most of the time they may not be very accurate in that. So NLP techniques can be used to understand whether the borrower is creditworthy or not by analyzing his digital presence. So all this again is very controversial area. So a lot of controversies are going out there saying that these models may make very bad decisions. Again, this is where the racism, gender bias, everything comes in. So maybe black people are always denied of loans because their NLP system is flawed, or people coming from a particular geolocation area. all these. But these are some fields where actual, so this is not just for the sake of saying that okay, NLP is in there, used in there. These are real world scenarios where NLP is being applied. Then customer service, chatbots, okay. In insurance and all, like settling insurance claims, a work that requires 3 or 4 days by an actual person may be completed in maybe 3 minutes or 3 seconds, maybe by a automated NLP tool. So maybe to approve a claim, it may take days or weeks for a person to actually go and find out whether the claim can be approved or not. All these things can be easily automated. This is where NLP comes in finance. And last, and the latest where NLP has put its foot is in competitive programming. So this is a very, very recent paper. It published in 2021 end or maybe 22 beginning. This is from a company called DeepMind, where they came up with a product called Alpha Code. Alpha Code reads a problem description and comes up with a solution in any language of your choice. So you can choose C++, Python, or some language, and you give a problem description to this product, Alpha Code. I think they have a demo online. They have published their code as well as a pre-trained model. And this Alpha Code actually participated in a coding competition. In a coding competition where all the humans were competing, this Alpha Code competed on 10 contests, on 10 tasks, and their overall rank was something around 54% or something like that. That is, in the overall ranking, AlphaCode came somewhere in the center. That is the intelligence of an average programmer. So this, when you see this, you will be wondering, right? Actually, have we attained that level of artificial intelligence we have been dreaming about? Okay. We have been talking about language bots which can talk to humans in human language, and now we have come up with products which can actually read a problem description given in natural language and then generate a language code in a programming language. So this is one reason, very recent development. We are in a very early stage whether to say that this is actually going to be the future or this is just a hype in something which is going to die off in a few years. We don't know, but this is where NLP stands as of today. Before we go forward, I know I have been hurrying up a bit, but is there anything that you want to discuss in the topics discussed till now? Any questions, comments, suggestions? Just to make sure that I am still audible. Let us search for this alpha code attention visualizer.
Ma'am, someone posted a question in chat box.
Okay. Shivakumar, which tool this one, ma'am? Actually, I think I didn't hear see your question at that point of time. So, uh, can you please repeat it? Okay, I understood, ma'am. It's people. Okay, fine. So this is a site which I talked about, where you can see how we can. I think we can choose different problems from this. Yeah. So here you can see a set of problems, also different languages in which this code has been generated and their results, like did they pass or fail the competition. So when you scroll on each of these keywords, you will find that the corresponding text in the problem description is highlighted. So when I say 4, so when it is say 4, it is saying that it understood that it is from the swap 2 digits. So from which natural language text did it generate this particular statement? We can see by scrolling over it with your mouse. A very interesting problem where NLP is used to generate a code. So if this comes up, maybe will we computer scientists lose our job? Will AI be able to take over our profession? And all you have to do is just write down the problem description and computer is already going to generate the code for you. Okay, I don't think anything like that is going to happen anywhere in the near future. Maybe it can help human programmers to maybe to help them to come up with some ideas, but anyway it's not going to completely replace the programmer's job. And from here onwards, all you have to do is give the problem and come NLP is going to come up with a very creative solution. I don't think such things is anyway not in a very near future this is going to happen, but definitely researchers is happening in this direction also, just like any other domain. AI is taking over computer science programming domain also. So we have something called Copilot in GitHub, I think. Yeah, GitHub Copilot. Your AI pair programmer. So this is another project which provides assistance to programmers. So all you have to do is you have to start writing the code, and then it will autofill the code. See, wonderful, right? All you have to do is just type the function prototype. So is positive, text, string, promise, boolean, and then so you have to be very specific in the name that you give to your function. You have to be very specific about the comments that you specify. The code will be auto generated by the copilot. So this is done by training, or this model is trained on all the code available in GitHub. So GitHub is a repository. Maybe you all already know what is a GitHub. GitHub is a code repository, just a free platform for versioning or sharing for many open source projects. People use GitHub. So there is a hell a lot of code available in GitHub, and this model has been trained on this programming code. Now you can see that how Copilot is not free, I guess. It's not free. We have to sign up. I didn't try this out. So you can integrate it into your ID, and just like when you are typing your mail is being auto-completed, your program code also gets auto-completed. It's not the simple auto-completion feature that you already have in your Eclipse or a Jupyter node. Maybe it is a bit more advanced. It is actually generating the entire code for you, not the single word. It's not auto-completion of a single word, but auto-completion of that entire function. So now coming to, so if NLP is such a wonderful thing, then we all should be able to use it, right? But that is not the case. You can see that even though there is a lot of researches going on, even though NLP has been around for so many decades, since 1940s, still we see most of the problems in NLP remains unsolved. Okay. So NLP is not as easy as it seems. Maybe once upon a time we thought that when we teach a computer to play chess, then AI is achieved. Just like that, sometime in the history we thought that this is going to be very easy. We are just going to learn all the rules, create a very huge rule base, and then NLP is going to be solved very soon, and then the world is going to be very wonderful. But that things didn't happen as expected. Whatever problems were there, they are still, to some extent, they can say they have been solved, but most of the problems are still as it is in this area, in this domain, the NLP domain. The problems are still very relevant. So why is NLP challenging? Okay, why is that something as simple as language, which a 3-year-old child can very easily handle, why this thing is becoming very difficult for machine? We know a child at the age of maybe 2 or 3 years old, they are able to handle languages very beautifully, but same thing, but understanding a very simple sentence itself is very difficult for a computer program. Okay, one of the reasons is language by itself is very complex. Although we humans with our wonderful brain is able to produce it as it has and when we want, it's not as easy as that. Language is very ambiguous. Given a word or a very simple sentence, we can interpret it in many ways. Okay. Second case is language has irregularities, like we humans speak in terms of sarcasm, idioms, metaphors. So we don't have a very fixed pattern in the language which computers can copy. And next is language keeps evolving. New words come in, new usage come in. Okay, maybe old word meaning evolves over time. For example, when you say mouse, the first thing that comes in your mind is very, very different with what comes in your parents or grandparents' mind. Okay. So the maybe the word mouse, the word transformer, model, train, I don't know, all the things, all the language words have greatly evolved over time. The usage has evolved. Then another reason is linguistic communication is very compressed. When we speak, when two people speak, when two people communicate using language, we both the listener and the speaker has some inbuilt knowledge, and the communication is based on that inbuilt knowledge. Okay, so I know that you know something. So if I speak this, you will be able to interpret it. So I don't have to specify all minute details in my communication, because we share a common knowledge, and we are and we know that the other person knows these things. Okay, whatever language, whatever context which we intend in our communication, this is already available there in the with the speaker also. So this allows us to compress our communication, text or speech or whatever, so that this is one reason that language feels it difficult to understand. Okay, language doesn't share the same knowledge base or the communication background which we are talking about. So some examples of simple ambiguity in language. I saw a girl with a telescope. This is a classic example you will come up with in any presentation, any textbooks, any blogs. No, actually, I should come up with some new innovative ideas. This is a very classic example. I saw a girl with a telescope. It could mean two things. That is, either the girl was having the telescope and I saw her, or I'm having the telescope and I saw the girl through it. Okay. Two interpretations, and we call it syntactic ambiguity. This difference comes due to the attachment of the word with the of the phrase with the telescope, with either with the girl or with the verb saw. So given such a sentence, how even humans get it confusing. How do you teach a machine to understand whether you should attach that telescope to the girl or to the verb saw? Another example of is in semantic ambiguity. So this one is syntactic ambiguity. Semantic ambiguity, a very, very simple sentence. I saw bats. Saw has different meaning. Bats have different meaning. They both combined again generates a different set of meanings. So can have four interpretations, and some interpretations are more likely possible than the others. You see why it isn't very, 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 very obvious. I wonder if I type this ISO bats, what would Google Translate say? Maybe we'll just find out. I never Googled it before, but okay, it says I saw the real flying bats. But there can be other interpretation, but this is the most probable interpretation of this sentence. Some other examples of metaphors, irregularities in language, something which we commonly see in literature, texts. having a heart of gold, metamorphically. Meet me at the bank. Again, bank can have different meanings. It can be a river bank, it can be a financial bank, it can be a blood bank, it can be anything. Okay. So out of the context, meet me at the bank is a very ambiguous sentence. Kill two birds with a stone, piece of cake, saying that it's very easy, raining cats and dogs, walking encyclopedia, broke my heart. A great movie for a Sunday nap. Again, is it a positive comment or is it a negative comment? A great movie for a Sunday nap. So if you're looking at the word literal meaning, you may feel that it's a positive sentence, but our inbuilt knowledge, which our common sense reasoning, through which we know that sleeping during a movie is supposed to be bad, something which you shouldn't do, then a great movie for a Sunday nap definitely says that the movie was very boring. This is one reason why NLP is becoming very challenging for these models. One of the reason why NLP is challenging is the way we communicate. So see, if you're working on a very clean text, for example, maybe an academic writing, research papers, technical articles, then it becomes much more simpler because you don't see this kind of irregularities in the language they use. Maybe legal documents, banking documents, they all are very, very specific without much irregularities, and it becomes much simpler. But when you are processing general text like news article or tweets or posts, then you have a whole lot of new problems which you need to address. Another famous challenge in NLP is the missing text phenomena. That is, we all know what we all know, but the machines don't. So when you read this, usually you might remember some of those Sandosh Pandit memes. How very compressed we can write, we can say phrases. For example, plastic cup. When I say plastic cup, we know that cup, it is a cup made from plastic. But when we say coffee cup, we know it is not a cup made of coffee, but it is something that you use to drink coffee. Okay. So how a combination of two words is generating different kind of meaning. Maybe plastic cup and plastic factory, where one means made of, where the other says that produces, a factory that produces plastic. A computer store that sells computer, but a neighborhood store that doesn't sell neighborhood, but it is a store in the neighborhood. So you can see some text which ought to be there to give a complete meaning is missing in these phrases. The reason why it is missing is humans need not have these phrases to understand the meaning. We already have a knowledge about the world out there, which allows us to fill in this missing text. And so again, there comes a question: if you want to automate these things, how do you teach the machines this inbuilt knowledge which they can use to do a correct interpretation? Now, maybe I think I'll stop here and continue in the next session about how we evolved, how NLP evolved over the years, from rule-based system to neural NLP and deep learning NLP as we see today. So the floor is open to discussion if anyone wants to share something interesting that they have heard about NLP, or maybe of any topics which we discussed today. And I would like to hear from the audience if they have tried out anything NLP, or maybe they have read something interesting.
Participants, if you have any doubt, you can ask question now.
For identifying news, what kind fake or true, we can use NLP. It's fake news detection is a very, as I said, it's a very popular application of natural language processing. So there are different ways of doing it. In the traditional way, we would be identifying the keywords, some of the keywords, but what the deep learning NLP does is to identify hidden patterns. So one way I was saying that from the responses, the kind of responses that the fake news attracts. Okay, so that could be one way of identifying. Um, One way is identify. See, when we talk about deep learning techniques, we will get a more understanding on this. Humans, at least when we talk about clickbait identification or hate speech, it is much easier for humans to understand, right? Because from the text itself, we understand that there is some hate content in this post. But fake news detection is much more difficult. So we might have to use some automatic summarization techniques. We may have to find out what is the core idea that is being propagated in that article, and we may need to find the similarity with actual authenticated content. Am I making my point clear? So you may need to come up with a technique to identify what is the core idea that is propagated in that news. Okay, it may be some political thing, or it may be something with some intention. So what is the main intention that is being propagated, and you may have to compare it with existing authenticated news. So maybe I'll share some interesting articles in this, or you can, okay, I'll share you a link where you can read about this. Just a second. Mm, okay. Maybe after the break, I'll share you that link. I have stored it somewhere. I think I have shared it with my student. Just a second.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
It
I'm
was a
sharing it
wonderful
in the
session.
chat. Yeah. Yeah, continue.
It was a wonderful session we had with now, and we will continue our session
Yes, at
from.
11, maybe 11:15 is fine.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
We can continue our next session from 11:15 onwards.
11:15 onwards.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Our next session will start from 11:15. Now we can leave. Thank you.